Welcome to the No Streetlights podcast. I'm Aaron.
And I'm Tim. We'll be engaging in vulnerable conversations every Friday to shine a light on what we've been through,
how it changed us, and what we learned. We want to encourage societal growth towards kindness through understanding.
These conversations and the associated language can be triggering.
Listen at your own discretion.
But please reach out if we need to be doing something better.
So, let's take a breath, relax, and be welcome.
So Aaron, welcome back. I know that you had a nice little stint there on vacation. Where were you visiting again?
I don't remember. Someone else got me the tickets. Someone else packed my bags. I just kind of showed up.
Huh. Whoever did that sounds like a phenomenal person, whoever helped you out.
Yeah, I'm really stoked that I had the opportunity to help two tiny creatures get back to their mother.
Huh. Hello there, cat mother, friend, and also our guest, Ketria. Welcome to No Streetlights.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for believing in us, our top patron and one of two.
Yep. Our arguably biggest fan so far.
Absolutely.
So, Ketria, I could throw in a little bit of backstory here and kind of tell people who you are. I think I did a fairly decent job of summarizing it earlier by letting them know that you're a friend and a fan and a cat mom, but I'm sure there's a couple small things I'm missing in that little description. So how about you tell me and Aaron who you are and give us a little bit of the Ketria experience.
Avoid the Ketria experience. Okay, well, thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast. Again, I am a top fan for reals. Y'all are truly inspirational. I am still active duty in the military, Navy, happen to be an MA1, and I'm lucky enough to be your coworker, Tim, and I get to experience your leadership. And I got to finally meet Aaron, and it was like meeting a little celebrity, which was kind of cool. He did save my little fur babies, so I owe everything to him for that, and they miss him. So just know that they're happy.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you here, but I do want to point out you just called Aaron a celebrity. I don't think anyone's ever called him that. Crazy, yes. Celebrity, probably never.
Yeah. I do religiously listen to your podcast every Friday when a new episode comes out. I wouldn't say obsession with it, but my devotion to it stems from a very good place because I knew you, Tim, and wanted to support something that you were providing to the rest of us out here. You and Aaron both.
Well, I really appreciate your support.
Of course. I'm here for you. I'm here for Aaron. Y'all are here for me. Of course. Y'all are making me nervous too. I'm not very articulate when I get nervous, so forgive me if I start stumbling over my words. But I did want to say a little kudos to your podcast that it is making changes in people's lives. For me, it has shown me that other people are... Sorry, it's been an emotional day.
It's okay. Take as much time as you need.
Doesn't help that I'm nervous, but...
Don't be nervous. You're just talking to me and Aaron. That's all this is.
I know. It just means a lot. Okay, so your podcast has shown me that other people go through some really trying times, and we all kind of have to put up a mask to get through our day-to-day evolutions, and you never know what somebody really is going through, and you don't know why somebody may or may not act the way that they do. And you don't know how somebody that you might be looking up to has gotten to that point in their life. So it's been a real inspiration to seek out help for myself. I heard Brittany's story, and she was very brave with it, and she mentioned going to therapy, and as my best friend, she really has pushed me and to heal in ways. And I'm getting emotional because I love you guys so much, and I'm really appreciative of the fact that you're willing to bring goodness into the world the way that you are, even though it takes time out of your off time, out of your days when you're exhausted and you spend so much time editing and coming up with scripts and interviewing people, it is worth it, in my opinion. That's all. I wanted to thank you for the podcast that you do.
We're doing it for you in the same reason that you're going to therapy for you. It's because it's worth it. You're worth it. As you said, we don't know what people are going through, but through our own experience, we can kind of guess. Because I know what I'm going through, so when I encounter someone else, I know that they're suffering the same way I am. I know they have the same struggles I do. And so I really can't thank you enough for the level of praise you've given us. But I do want to say that you are worth every single second of effort we've put into this thing.
Yeah.
Thank you. We, your listeners, appreciate it.
Yeah. Just to echo Aaron's sentiments here, I feel the exact same way. When we started No Streetlights, I've said this a million times. I'm going to say it a million more times. Ultimately, I want people to know that they're not alone, and I want to help just one person. Clearly, our show has been able to reach you, and because of that, you wanted to seek out a way to improve you and become the you that you want to be. I think that's incredible. And it's hard to fathom just Aaron and I sitting here recording and, talking to a bunch of friends and stuff is having an impact on people. And that's what we wanted to do, but it doesn't mean it's easy to think that it's going to happen. If Aaron and I had stopped at episode 3, like 98% of the podcasts out there do, maybe somebody would have heard an episode and they might have had, a light turn on in their head or a light turn on in their life in general. And maybe that person would have had their life changed, but Aaron and I would not have ever known because we stopped at 3 episodes. But we kept pushing. I'm not going to say woe is me, but there is a lot of work that does go into the whole podcasting, and huge kudos to Aaron because he puts up with me and does a lot of scheduling and helps deconflict a lot of issues. But yeah, I remember when you told me that you were listening to the podcast, and I was kind of in awe, I think. I was like, wow, people around me are actually listening. I was like, this is something special. And then like you would reach out and be like, hey, this episode was great. I loved hearing about this story, or I loved hearing about that story. And you signed up as a patron, and I was like, holy crap. I was like, somebody actually believes in us. I was like, she's my friend, though. Like, she's just wanting to support her friend. That's all it is. But yeah, no, the praise kept going, and the comments about the episodes kept coming. And, it's really helped put things in perspective and make me kind of feel that sense of satisfaction. And in return, it makes me want to keep pushing and giving that feeling, paying it forward. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
So going through the process of wanting to better yourself and everything, you mentioned that you're going to therapy. So, do you want to touch on what exactly it is that you want to change in your life?
For sure. So for therapy, I went not really sure of what it is that I needed help with, but I knew I needed help. I was a bit stubborn, I think, for the majority of my life. I've been in the military for almost 9 years. So that whole time I should have been getting therapy, but it just kept piling on with work and stuff. And I was in denial that I couldn't fix my own problems. So it ended up being for a generalized anxiety disorder, which I'm pretty sure everybody has at some point in their life. But this was starting to get out of hand to where it could have been a mental illness if I left it alone and it started to fester. So I have learned in therapy how to actually understand why certain interactions with people were affecting me so much and why I had so much physical anxiety just existing in the same space as other things and other people. And I didn't even know what it was. I just knew that I was so exhausted by the end of the day. And I dreaded just leaving my house, not because I was scared to go outside, but because I just knew something bad was going to happen every time. So doing that really helped me relax a little bit physically and mentally. And it was a lot of mental exercises that I had to run back and forth with my therapist, who was really understanding and really amazing. And I was referred to them by your wife, as in, like, she suggested it.
Hmm.
But I actually took her word for advice, and it's been paying off. And every day I feel better and better. And every time I go in there and realize, okay, it's not something I should be beating myself up over. It's something that I was raised to be. It's something that has the environment has created in me. And I can understand now, like, why looking at somebody and assuming that they're thinking something can cause so much of a defense mechanism in me. So now I can have interactions without wanting to freeze or appease or feeling like I'm in a threat situation. So that really helped with my mental health in general, because now I have room and space to think about other things like self-improvement and goals and things that I want to accomplish. And there's not so much of a sense of doom pending over my life anymore. It's been very eye-opening.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you were, I think, as people would put it, you were kind of stuck in survival mode. And I relate to a lot of what you're talking about, especially with the general anxiety disorder and the fear of leaving the house because you know something bad's going to happen. I had very similar feelings, and I was going through a very similar time. I didn't get the help though, like you did. I don't think I caught it early, as some people would say. Mine festered, and it got to a point where it took my wife. Again, she just seems to be the beacon of light here for all of us. But she had to tell me. She was like, "This is becoming more than it ever has been." And so I sought out some help, and I'm so grateful I did. I think you and I are walking that same path together at this point. I've been in the military just about as much as you. My fight or flight mode had been activated for years, and I was just exhausted. I just needed to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. At least I couldn't sleep until I got some help.
Yeah, sometimes it takes an extra hand to help you see what's going on instead of your own thoughts that like to cascade into a crazy avalanche.
Yeah, I would like to look at one of the things you said, which was that you're on a path of self improvement. And again, I hate being the contrarian, but I don't think you're improving yourself. I think you are entering into self realization or self actualization. Instead of identifying with these thought patterns that are going to be detrimental to your liberation, you're learning to disidentify with them and to actually come home to yourself and show up for yourself in order to really be the Ketria that you deserve.
I would agree with that. I am still trying to figure out who that person is, because I went straight from high school where everything is pretty much shoved into your identity, if that's all that's going on in your life, and then straight into boot camp. And then my life was my work. So I'm fairly simple in the fact that I have the Navy as my backbone right now for who I am. And I don't think that's all that's there. I have other interests and stuff, but it's easy to forget about them.
So I do want to know what type of stuff you got into before the Navy, and then once you're in, where do your passions lie? What have you filled your time with?
I like how you ask that question, because I hate it when people are like, "What are your hobbies?" Because to me, hobbies is like you're actively doing those things. I used to be very artsy. I was pretty good at painting and drawing, and I kind of took pride in that in my high school years. And I was definitely the quiet art student, but I did do a little bit of softball. So I was trying to exit my comfort zone and do things that I admired, like be a little bit sporty, be a little more active. When I joined, I definitely stopped drawing and painting so much. And I think the talent that went along with that has evaporated a little bit. And so it would take a lot of work to get back there. It does require inspiration on my end to be able to make something that I'm proud of. I used to write a little bit when I was in high school. I have a very good friend who we would co-author a book or our story that we were writing on. It was totally fantasy, but it was such a great escape. And I think it helped writing and English skills because we would edit each other's work. I really liked that stuff. And then stopped doing that. When I joined, I stopped reading. I used to love reading. Everything was just so exhausting from the military and learning how to be an adult that I just stopped doing things that I enjoyed, which probably didn't help with the mental health there, you know. But, you know, I've kind of picked up the reading a little bit. It is just hard to settle down enough sometimes to escape into that world. But when I do, it's like an addiction and I have to get through 3 books and then I set it down and don't pick it up for another 6 months. But other than that, I liked kind of pushing my limits a little bit in a safe way. I'm a fan of horror in a sense, the paranormal horror movies and books and everything spooky. Halloween's my favorite because you get to be as spooky as you want and it's kind of goofy and fun. So another thing that I've been into is baking because it is something that I can gift people, give them a little part of myself to help, you know, bring a smile to their faces or something that they enjoy or look forward to. My mother actually made these pumpkin chocolate chip cookies when I was younger. And despite any kind of relationship turmoil, you know, growing up or whatever, mother daughters, we tit for tat. But that is one thing that I hold near and dear is some of those memories. And those cookies are a bittersweet reminder, I think, of a more innocent time in my life with my mother. It's like whenever I offer those to somebody, they really, really enjoy them and they'll talk about them and ask me for more and tell me that they'll pay me to make them more. And it's very, very sweet. But to me, it's just a reflection of, you know, love in my life. Like my mother making those and having happy memories with her. And as I make them every time, I get to relive those moments. So they are made with love, honestly. So that is something that I've enjoyed doing. And I'm sorry that I'm getting so emotional, but these things do matter in life. And, you know, more and more I get told that it's okay to feel things. And, you know, emotions is just that feeling things and not shutting yourself off. So I apologize if I sound like a squeaky squirrel, but here I am.
Just to clarify real quickly, right? I've had those pumpkin cookies of yours. Yeah, they're phenomenal. They do taste like love. I'm also a pumpkin enthusiast, so if you make anything pumpkin related, I'm gonna be there for it. But also, never apologize for feeling your emotions. I think it's beautiful that not only do you get to share what these things mean to you, but I get to feel what you feel in these moments, and I think that's really important. I really want to hear stuff like this.
And I wish I had more stuff that I did regularly that evoked that in me. I mean, the last time I made my own squeaky toy impression was at my wedding, where I could not get out a single line without my voice cracking and, you know, tears coming down. Because it is an overwhelming sense of love and joy. And I think that's how we're meant to live. It's just constantly feeling this holy experience of like, I am so deep in the pool of affection and what have you that I cannot come out dry.
I think we should all try and live our lives wanting to be a squeaky toy.
Well, I will be the squeakiest one.
Ketria, I'm wondering, do you want to tell us a little bit about what invokes such strong emotions, thinking about those innocent times?
I'm gonna need some more tissues, but I got you. I think sometimes in order to value something, you have to lose it first. And innocence is one of those things that is lost. No matter who you are, you're going to lose it in some way, shape, or form. And it's one of the most precious and valued things that you can have in life. I think it does bring a lot of emotion with it when you remember those times and how simple it is and how easy it is. And growing up is never easy. And if it is, you haven't grown up yet. So I'm not saying that anybody that hasn't been through something difficult hasn't grown up, but you're gonna notice a change in your life and the way you think. And if you can look back fondly on something, then you've definitely changed in a way. That's what brings the emotion. And the bittersweetness is just remembering that and valuing that time that I had. That being said, the things that I have learned, growing up and becoming an adult without any kind of guidance, honestly, just being thrown into the water of the military, unsure and unaware of what I was getting into. I really didn't know much about the Navy, and I didn't have a lot of time to even consider the fact that I should probably research it first. I was still very naive, and it got me into a lot of trouble. Not trouble publicly, but internally, with the experiences that I've had and the way that I let people treat me sometimes. Like I said, I'm trying to learn boundaries, and that is a really hard thing to learn if you've never learned it. That's a that's a journey in itself, honestly.
I can relate a lot to what you're talking about with like the loss of innocence, you know. I have a lot of fond memories from when I was young, specifically Halloween. You know, I'm a lot like you. Some people think that I live my life based off of Halloween. That is my anniversary, by the way, listeners. I have like these fond memories of like wearing costumes and going out into like this night that seemed endless, and it was just nothing but trick or treaters and candy everywhere, and it's like this sense of that I just don't get anymore. It's the same thing with like a Christmas morning as a kid, waking up, and my brother and I would go down into the living room, wait by the tree with all of this seemed like a mountain of presents. So much stuff. Like, oh my God, Santa Claus was here. He ate the cookies. This is crazy. Growing up, those nights start becoming a little bit more inbound. The candy becomes a little bit less. The Christmas presents, the mountain of presents becomes a few. And the cookies, well, they're just not there anymore. The loss of innocence with age, knowledge, it is something worth grieving. It is something worth taking a moment to actually grieve, because you won't ever be able to live through those moments ever again. We get to experience the opportunity to grow and become people, but it's a give and take.
You mentioned that it becomes less and less, but I have made it a mission stubbornly in my life to make it live on in adulthood. This Easter, you might have received a Easter basket from the Easter Bunny. That was very clearly me. Just like walking up to your front door with a giant sugar-filled basket.
I don't know what you're talking about. There was an Easter bunny at my actual door, so
But every year I try to do something. I might not make every holiday a thing, but I still get the inspiration to become that season and that joy and try to figure out how to make it work for Halloween. There's always movies to watch, and I love decorating my house for the holidays, Halloween and Christmas, but it still gives you that sense of feeling, you're trying, and it does capture those moments, especially when you're with friends. I think it is important to not just give up on things that you loved and enjoyed. They might be a little different, but you'll still get that nostalgia from it, and I think it counts for something.
I totally agree and want to applaud you for the concept of don't let it die. If something is magical and beautiful, if it's growing between a seam in the concrete and you got to come back every single day to water it, let's go. Let's do it. And then I do kind of want to backtrack a little bit, because when I joined the military, I also had this idea in my head of they're in the military. They're choosing to live a selfless life. They're putting the person on their left and right ahead of themselves and trying to protect the innocence that's back home so that other people don't have to face that. And then you get in the military and you realize that most people who join the military come from broken homes and don't have options and are full of hurt. And then they get in and they say, "You're worthless. You're just a number. You won't be anything without the military," because that's how they feel. And then that does start to break us down, because instead of observing it, we absorb it. You don't come in prepared to set boundaries with the understanding that you're going to be surrounded by people who are afraid, and they're trying to growl and bark as loud as they can so nobody crosses their fence to find out that they have no teeth. I do deeply regret that you weren't prepared with setting boundaries and understanding that when other people attack, it's because they're scared. I've thought about that a lot, and I've come to acknowledge how much privilege I had coming in as a man who was used to fighting and winning, so that when someone came at me sideways, I was just able to squash and proceed. And that it wasn't just my dream perception of what the military that got broken, but I still remained. And unfortunately, when people aren't used to eating gravel, a lot less of them remains after being thrown in the tumbler.
I remember being so shocked by the relationship culture in the military, the Navy. I don't know how the other branches are, but I could only assume. And being so heartbroken by the sheer infidelity of everything and the way people talk about their spouses. And like, you get the occasional really good person that, values their relationships, but I was so blown away by how common it was and how easy it was for everyone to be like that. And that was just the beginning. That was just the beginning of my reality check. I mean, I could go on for days about the things that I've seen, the things that I've heard, the things that I'm afraid of. I have a lot of new fears, I think, that were created because I've seen stuff and I've been a part of stuff. And I don't know if anybody's ever made it through without being scarred so deeply by something. And the military can be an amazing place. And honestly, I owe all of my successes to it, and myself, obviously, like fighting this battle for 9 years.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I kind of sound like a crybaby, but that's just because emotions are not allowed in the military. God forbid that you cry for anything. It makes you weak, apparently, and it makes you have less of an impact, and nobody can take you seriously. And, I'm reteaching myself because of this that it's a normal thing. And I think people should accept that. And being hard and callous about something is absolutely a defense mechanism. So the toughest of the tough probably have the most ouchies that they got to work on,
Most ouchies, yeah.
For sure. In Shaolin Kung Fu, one of our mantras was, "We're the hardest of the hard and softest of the soft." And man, I wish I understood that way better, way sooner. Because the only way you can be strong is being honest, being open, being vulnerable, saying, "Yes, this is me." And there's nothing wrong with that. I am whole, I am complete, and I'm worth absolutely everything that can go right. And I'm going to facilitate that for myself because I deserve it. Instead of getting into those thought patterns that spiral and trying the same thing every day with no success, day after day, hating yourself for doing it again. So I do think it's incredibly important that we work as diligently as we can to remove the crepitus and the scar tissue in every joint of our body and our soul, so that we can see and accept each other and ourselves by extension.
One thing that you said that stuck out to me, right, was being open, honest, and being 100% you. For some reason, my mind, hearing that, went straight to the concept of, like, I guess you could say, like, people pleasing. Because I was reminded of a situation that a friend of mine had the other day at work. And they were kind of telling me about, they were having a rough time with somebody. Something happened that was out of their control. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was something kind of silly. I guess somebody got in trouble off of something that they perceived, the person who got in trouble perceived as this other person's fault.
Hmm.
And it felt like that person carried that around on their shoulders all day. Meanwhile, the other person, who was the person who supposedly had got this person in trouble, had no clue. They didn't even think anything of it, right? And I was wondering, because in a situation like that, that'd be a very difficult thing to face as a person, right? Like if somebody confronted you and said, it's your fault that this happened to me. And it's such a difficult thing to sit there, hear that, and then, I don't know, not apologize. You know, like you want to apologize to them, like, oh, I'm sorry. You know, I didn't mean to do that or whatever happened. But it's like, it's not your fault for how that person perceived the situation. It's not up to you to apologize in that situation. I don't know. That's the first thing that just comes to my mind whenever you say, like, be you, be 100% you, because you are complete, you are whole. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. Does that make sense?
All the time I tell people, you got to deal with that shit. I'm dealing with my shit. Those are your jobs, not mine.
Yeah, definitely.
Boundaries.
Your emotions, though valid, are not my responsibility. I'm completely okay if you're upset. I think you have the right to be upset. You have the right to perceive a situation however you want. But I'm not responsible for your emotions. You are responsible for your own emotions.
That's such a big message. It can apply to so many things. I'm thinking like generational trauma, our parents, like we should not be apologizing for their emotions, but we are taught to feel guilt in our existence because difficult it was for them. Same thing.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of off topic, but that's what I was thinking of when you were saying that. Like it could be such a small situation, it could be on a personal level, it could be a friend, it could be, a whole generation, the world, war, being responsible for others' emotions.
I find that interesting because I feel like our brains tend to process this information and bring us to a place that we may find ourselves struggling in that area, or an area where we feel like we're improving, right? So for me, right, I wanted to think of my friend who felt responsible for somebody else's emotions. And then you said that you wanted to think about generational trauma. So that kind of makes me wonder, do you feel like you are overcoming generational traumas? Or do you feel like that's a battle that you haven't fought yet?
I am still very much in the thick of it currently. I do not have a resolution for my struggles at the moment. We talked a little bit before, but I'm not here on your podcast right now to inspire to a complete message of everything's going to be good in the end. I wanted to show that you can have little victories, even if you are, like I said, in the thick of things. For me, I do have a lot of childhood trauma. I feel like most of us do, especially in the military. As Aaron said, that's something that I think is going to take a lifetime to overcome. And should I choose to have children one day, that's something that I'm going to have to renew, redevelop, redefine as a woman and a child and whatever, what have you. Generational trauma, if it's not one thing, it's going to be another, So you are just redefining what they're going to feel trauma about. I don't think you can make anything perfect 100% of the time. And I think accepting that is going to be an important part of growth.
I feel like whenever it comes to the concept of breaking a generational cycle, right? The trauma cycle, the idea is never to get rid of it, but I think it's to make it better. And I don't mean that in the sense of like, oh, well, everybody in my family's been alcoholics, so I'm only going to drink like a little bit and only be a slight alcoholic. I don't mean it like that. I just mean like you take what you have and you try to make it better for the next generation. And sometimes it's going to be big movements and sometimes it's going to be small movements, but I do think it's very important that whenever it comes to the idea of building a better future and trying to help the next humans feel like people, sometimes it is a bunch of small strides that end up making a mile.
Yeah, I agree that Generational trauma cycles are monumental, and they tower over us in a way that seems impossible to overcome. But I think the work is feasible, honestly. As long as you're going left foot, right foot, you're going to get to a much better place. Something I've had to contend with lately is, in order to heal this generational trauma that's been passed on to us and that we are doomed to pass on if we don't address it, is healing our inner child. You know, whenever we're anxious or scared, or for me, it's often depressed, just saying, "Hey, buddy, what's going on? What's wrong?" And then recognizing them, saying, "I hear you. Damn, that's hard." And thankfully, we have amazing friends like Mr. Chaz. I wanted to call him Doctor for some reason, but I don't think he's been awarded a PhD yet. But that's necessary and needed. And in order to stop the cycle, we really have to show ourselves that love and compassion so that we can heal from it and not just pass it on to the next guy or gal. And Tim saying we can't perfect it, the way I perceive that is, if you break your arm and they have to go in, put in screws, plates, whatever, the scars prove that the trauma happened. It proves that your past exists and that it's real. But we can either choose to live in dysfunction, or we can fix the problem. If you don't work at it and work at it and work at it, that arm's never going to be right. But you can get to a point to where that arm is beautiful and complete and perfect and does everything you need, despite the scars, despite the pins. So I think in order to progress out of that dysfunction and that cycle, we really have to heal ourselves. And the only way we can do that is through love and compassion. So whenever we're anxious or depressed, we got to sit with it and say, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And then listen to ourselves, believe ourselves. And oftentimes we don't need a solution. That's one thing I'm so grateful to my marriage for, is instead of trying to fix everything, most of the time I just got to fucking listen and say, I'm here. What you're going through is real. And I'm glad that you're here with me. So if nothing else sticks today, Ketria, we're glad that you're here with us.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited to get to see my friends in this aspect.
Heck yeah.
One thing that we have yet to talk about are your hopes for the future. What are you going to do when your arm is back in place?
I will I have so many goals, but a lot of, I just know that there's so many things that could change them, that I'm not trying to overwhelm myself with a hope for something that's going to work out perfectly. My bar is raised pretty high, but at the same time, I've met some pretty low outcomes, right? So I do want a family one day. And that's one of the most important things to me. And a family can mean, a spouse and maybe kids, maybe not. I haven't really decided my view on that. I think it's going to depend a lot on maybe the person I'm supposed to be with. But I would really like to find that companionship. I would like to be comfortable in my job. I still feel like I'm always climbing and fighting for something better, something more. And I've been fairly successful as I am now, but I just feel like not enough. Nothing is enough. And it's not that I don't appreciate the things that I do have and the place that I am, because it's an incredible, comfortable place in a sense, financially, right? But experience wise, I'm always hoping for something more. And I'm always thinking there's something better, something greener on the other side. But then I hear people's experiences on the other side, and it's daunting. You never know what can happen. My hopes are just happiness, success, joy, pretty much the big ticket items, but kind of want some adventure in there. I would really like to do something interesting. Like I don't know if I could hike 2,000 miles like that amazing couple that was featured previously, but it sounded so incredible, and I was so inspired by that. I love nature, and I want to be able to go live in a yurt and grow my own food and have a little Highland cow as a pet. Like, there's so many things that would be such a dream come true, I think, but you never know until you get there. There's always something a little more that you don't realize about a situation. Like what about taking care of that cute little cow is going to be a pain, or maybe a career shift is going to be something that I could regret or not. I'm afraid still of regrets, but I feel like I'm living a regret and striving for no regret at the same time. But I also wouldn't give up where I'm at right now. So it's kind of a confusing situation being an adult, living in life. As long as there's always something good that I can think of in the present, I think I'll be okay. I have a lot of good friends. I'm striving for better things. I'm trying to learn basic social boundaries and improve my morals and improve my values. And even though I've fallen pretty far from where I was when I joined, I mean, that was just a band-aid of morals and values that was pushed on me by the culture I grew up in. It wasn't what I truly thought or believed. So here I am trying to remake myself as a 27-year-old, thinking I'm behind the clock here. But it's never good to compare your timeline to others. Nothing's ever going to be the same.
You said Highland cow,
Yes.
and I immediately thought of a cow with Highland's hair, Aaron. And I was like, I would love to own a Highland cow. Sorry, that was like that was just sitting on the tip of my tongue since you said it. Look, it really stuck out to me how you were talking about regrets and things, and I feel like it's a very common thing for people to be fearful of the unknown. I've talked with Aaron about this before, but I think I'm always going to have a fear of death because I feel as if what happens afterwards is unknown and I'll never know it until I experience it. And I think that fear of the unknown it's very real, it's very strong. If you got out of the military tomorrow, Ketria, do you feel like you would have a good life? Could you continue your way of life as it is now?
I do not think I could, and I don't want to be a downer about it, but I really don't think I have many skills to offer outside of the military at the moment. I'm not particularly educated in any specific field, even though I do have interests. I don't think I would have the time it would need to take to learn those things and to get a good job to be able to maintain my lifestyle. So I feel comfortably stuck in this career field.
So the big reason why I asked you that is because I completely disagree with everything you just said. You're an E6 in the military. You have 9 years worth of experience in your field. If you got out of the military tomorrow, you'd be able to take that and turn that into at least a GS8, GS9 based job. Hell, you work in, I'm not going to say where you work specifically, but your particular field of work that you're in right now, you could probably get a position at like GS10, maybe 12, just based off of your experience, depending on how you write your resume and everything. I think you're selling yourself short a little bit, but I think it's normal because of that fear of the unknown. If I got out of the military tomorrow, yes, I'm scared. I'm scared of the idea of getting out because I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not 100% sure what I want to do when I grow up. So, yeah, I mean, I have that fear too. But it doesn't mean that you couldn't succeed. It's just being able to put a name to it and being able to state, yeah, I'm a little scared to put my toes in the water. And that's fine. That's okay. That's normal.
Okay. The way we were raised, the best technology that was available 20 years ago was, I'm proud of you for your accomplishment. But now we're realizing that it's not the accomplishments that matter. It's not what we do. It's not how much we produce. It's how much effort are we putting in. We can't achieve something and suddenly be happy. If we're not happy now, we're not going to be happy at 5,000 listens. We're not going to be happy at 10,000 listens. We're not going to be happy once we've made it, quote unquote. If I'm worth something ever, I'm worth something now. So if something gets taken from me and I suddenly feel betrayed and like I don't have enough, then I'm kind of letting the stimulus out there change who I am in here. So I don't think you should be living a regret. I think you're doing an amazing job, and I think that you should be incredibly proud of yourself because you do have a bunch of scars that prove what you've been through. But you are doing such an amazing job being an example for people, saying, I'm worth feeling these emotions at the very least. And so I commend you for that. And I hope that you can recognize yourself for the miracle that you are and be proud of that instead of hating that you haven't done X, Y, or Z yet, because that shit doesn't matter at all. Tim, something I talked with Brian about while we were out there is that it makes sense that you're scared of death because I'm sure it feels like death has taken everything from you. And I'm sorry I wasn't crying earlier, Ketria, but if I'm going to cry, it's going to be now. We are our inner child. So, of course, you're going to be afraid of death because of what it's taken from you. If we take a moment to witness that child, I think that we'd all probably be crying because of how deeply we miss our friends and our family and everything that's been taken from us, whether that be our innocence or somebody to show us that we're capable of great works and that we're worthy of love and that someone's always going to be there for us. I think we really just have to realize that no one's ever gone from us. We're here to reflect the reality, and there's nothing that can be taken from us. We, in and of ourselves, contain multitudes, and every experience that ever has been or will be, we can imagine right now. And so I do miss all those people dearly, but they're still here. How can I miss them because I am because of them? If that makes any sense.
It does make sense. And I think the thing that we're really missing is future possibilities with these people.
I feel like I missed the mark. I started off good, and then I kind of veered.
No, I was actually having an epiphany while you were talking, Aaron. It's not in the realm of what you think it would have been. I was sitting here and I was hearing you processing everything you're saying, and I started thinking about what it must be like for my inner child. And then out of nowhere, this thought clicked into my head. And I was like, counselors could not go into their job every day hoping to fix the person sitting across from them. And I was like, why the fuck was that what I thought about when I started thinking about my inner child? Aaron, I think you'd make a phenomenal counselor. I think you should fucking do that because the ability, you're able to sit there and you're able to just tell people, like, these are the emotions you're feeling. I think they're valid. This is, I mean, not to downplay what you say or anything like that, but you really do take what people say inward, reflect it back in such an insightful and encouraging way, I would say. And I was like, damn, it must be really hard to be a fucking counselor because if you went into work every single day thinking that you have to fix the person sitting across from you, you would never be satisfied with your job. And I was like, isn't that what everybody feels when they go into work? If you go into work every single day thinking I have to do X, Y, and Z, are you ever going to be satisfied with what you accomplish for the day? I don't know.
That's a very good point, Tim, because sometimes I go to work and I value my work ethic. That is one thing that I take pride in. And I feel like you do the same. But as soon as I'm producing for my boss, supervisors, whatever, oh my goodness, goes downhill like a wagon full of
Shit.
Bricks.
It's a really good thought to not have to go into work. And what happened?
You said it goes down like a wagon full of, and then Aaron and I filled it in with two different things.
I like shit or bricks or shitting bricks, you know?
Shitting bricks is always a good one.
Yes. Anywho, so having the mindset of what you just described of going to work and wanting to do your best, I think would be better than going to work and telling yourself you have to accomplish this thing every time and every day. Because then it takes the satisfaction out of it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you were able to complete my thought there for me because I know I started veering off there at the end, just like Aaron. This is why we have a podcast together.
Exactly.
It goes into the same idea where we were talking about the fight or flight, right? Like if you handle every single situation like you are trying to survive and you're in that survival state every single second, you're going to be exhausted and you're going to get burnt out. And if you go into your job or your passion, you can take it for everything, right? But like, let's say, Ketria, you were talking about how much you love art and everything. If you sat down right now and said, "I need to paint the best painting I've ever done ever," you've essentially sealed the fate on how you're going to feel at the end of your session. You're going to hate it. You're going to be like, "This is not the best I could have done." You are your worst critic. You are your most critical critic. But if you go in there saying, "I'm going to do the best that I can today on this painting," probably going to be pretty satisfied with what you do because you're going to love it. And the same thing can be applied to your job. Same thing can be applied to your relationships. Same thing can be applied to literally everything. If you just go in there saying, "I'm going to do the best that I can," rather than saying, "I'm going to do X," I think you're going to be a little bit happier.
Oh my God, Tim, this is something I've wanted to yell for the past hour and 10 minutes, and I keep forgetting. Because it's part of my journey, and I think we agreed to show it for Ketria today. But hopefully this helps Ketria. The thing that I hate the most about having been in the military is every day I was told to be critical. Nitpick and what little tiny things are wrong. I don't need to be critical. I need to be helpful. Does it help you if I yell at you for whatever? No. So now in my life, whenever someone's doing something and I don't think they're doing it perfectly or good enough or better or whatever, I'm really trying to check myself, and I haven't gotten good at it yet, but say, is this going to help? Or am I just being critical for the sake of doing what I was told I should be doing? That I should be nitpicking every little tiny thing? Or how do I actually fucking help this situation? Is what I'm going to say going to benefit? Is it going to change the outcome? Or is it just going to make it shittier for the other people or myself, for that matter, because I'm hypercritical of myself. So one thing that I'm trying to do, most especially for my wife, but then probably more importantly for myself, is, am I just being critical or am I being helpful?
Dude, that's making me really sit down and kind of think of a couple things, like just a couple situations, mostly work related, nothing like crazy. But it makes me kind of wonder to myself, have I been helpful in these situations or am I just being critical? It's making me reflect. I like that. It's a really good thought, Aaron.
I think it takes a very strong person to be able to react to things like that. And instead of just blowing up and getting the satisfaction of that instant anger, that instant justice, if you will, of meeting difficult situations with a knee-jerk reaction, as we would call it. So getting there is half the battle. Getting to that point where you can step back and take a breath and really process what is happening to be able to add to the resolution of it if it is a problem. And that for me is something that I've admired from Tim for sure, as I do work with him. I've seen him confront people before in the kindest way possible. And I was standing there stunned, like, how are you not blowing up right now? I am angrier than you are about this. And it didn't even happen to me.
Yeah.
So I think that's a talent in itself. But we definitely need more teaching in life on how to do stuff like that instead of just trying to hold people who do yell and scream and tell you to criticize and tell you that you're just, a bullet sponge and you're worthless. Why do we hold those people on a pedestal and say that they're cool or that they're hard or somebody that you should look up to? I don't understand why society has come to something like that. Maybe my society, right? Not just society in general, because there are a lot of changes going on, but my personal one, how I was raised, the tougher you are, the cooler you are, the better you are. I don't know how to start changing that. I really don't know how to push that into the lives of others, not to step on their toes or anything, but to be that example. That's something that I struggle with. It would feel so good to just backlash. It's easier to be angry than it is to be calm, cool, and collected.
I had a really good friend. I still have him. He's very much still here in this world, but he's a very good friend of mine. I did spend a lot of time with him at my previous command. Huge shout out to Pickle if you're listening to this. If not, huge shout out to you anyway. Love you, brother. I wish I had understood earlier in my life how to approach uncomfortable conversations with more of a level head. And it reminds me of he loved to debate things. One of the big things that he loved to debate was like religion-based conversations. And I remember every single time he would have a conversation with somebody, not every single time, sorry, but I would remember the heated conversations he would have with somebody. And he would always keep a level head during the conversation. And he was able to just like take what they're saying, process it. And he was big enough a man at the end of the conversation to be able to walk away and say like, hey, we don't agree with each other, and that's completely okay. And I love you for your opinion. Thank you for having this conversation. Meanwhile, the other person's like fuming, like, I'm gonna win. And he's like, no, but thank you very much for talking. And what really made me think about him was you're talking about how like the hardest people have to be like the coolest and everything. This is one of the coolest, hardest motherfuckers I know out there. He's got like a fucking 30-pack abs, covered in tattoos, 6'3". His jaw is as square as a fucking square. And he is by far one of the most emotional people I've ever met. Love him. Such a good guy. And he's not scared to show his emotions. But I would still think he is one of the coolest fucking people I've ever met. This guy is out there. He went from Navy to Army, doing badass stuff in the Army. His goal in life is to kill terrorists. Just kidding. But he is in like the higher up area stuff that I don't know anything about, right? Super cool guy. But yeah, no, he 100% super emotional guy. Gigantic fucking teddy bear. Love him.
Is he single? He can kill my terrorists.
No, he's married with a kid.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would have married him and gave him a kid. But yeah, I do think the concept of not showing your emotions is what makes you cool, and being the hardest, toughest, baddest motherfucker out there is reflected by how little you cry, or how little you smile, or you just sit there stone-faced, stone-walled. People's emotions bounce off of you. That's what a fucking horrible life you must be living. How depressing. Life is a one-way ride, right? We only ever continue going down one path. And if you go through that entire path without experiencing literally 80-90% of life because you decide that you don't want to feel emotions, that sucks, man. That's not a good life.
I don't know if any of you have ever gotten to a stage in life where you haven't been able to feel emotions to the extent that would be considered normal, but it's such a boring place to be. It is so boring. You can't laugh, you can't joke, you don't care to laugh or joke. Like depression will do that to you. And I think trying to fight against it so much will just force your body into having that wall. And it's going to take a lot of stuff, negative stuff usually, to bottle up for you to be able to feel that again. And it's just going to be in an unhealthy way. It's going to explode, and you're going to do something that you'll have to think about later while you're trying to fall asleep, and you don't really want to have done that. I kind of consider it like a balloon. If you've blown up a balloon and you take the end and you kind of pull it to the sides and it lets out a little bit of air at a time. If you're not letting your emotions out, you're just going to pop it. It's going to be loud and uncomfortable, and it might scare some people in the room. So it is good to live life with emotions.
I think your metaphor is way better. Metaphor? Is that the right word for that, Aaron?
Yeah.
Anyway, I think your example is way better than my example, because I was thinking of like a can of Coke. Because like if you shake it up and then pop the top, it pfft. But if you just pop the top and let it sit there, it eventually go flat on its own. I think it just makes more sense to just pop the top and let it go flat on its own. I don't want Coke all over the place.
That's what Mentos are for.
Yeah.
Well, our friends could be the Mentos if you want to go that far. And the fizziness is the feelings
Your friends make your Coke explode?
in a good way. Like if you were a flat Coke, to me, that would just be like a boring, unwanted Coke. But if you throw a Mento in there, it gets really exciting. And honestly, friends are Mentos.
I think so. I think I agree with you on that. I meant it more so as like the soda going flat as you allowing your emotions to run its course versus exploding everywhere. But yeah, flat Coke is boring.
I think being ruled by our emotions is boring. And I think that's why step one of conscious discipline, as Chaz told us, is composure. And pretty much every conversation we've had with everyone is get a handle on your emotions, take a breath, get out of your hindbrain, get into your forebrain. What do you really want to be doing right now? Are you going to be happy with that response? And one of the doctors I've been listening to about the path forward, they say the most valuable skill is choosing what to pick up and what to leave. Choosing, is that how I'm going to react? So that's another thing I've really been trying to focus on is discriminating in my daily life between reactions and responses. Is this how I want to be? Am I happy with how that went? Am I just going to keep bashing my head against the wall doing the same thing over and over again? Or am I going to look over there and see the door that's right next to me for me to get past this stupid wall?
Ketria, I think something that it's very important for me to tell you this, right? But the situation that you mentioned earlier where I was able to keep my composure, there was only one thought in my head while I was going through that time. Don't just talk about it, be about it. How can I be one of the hosts of No Streetlights podcast talking about having people being able to regulate your emotions and being able to go from your fight or flight to your executive functions and having all these wonderful opportunities to talk to such experienced guests and then just blow up on some dude? I'm like, that would be the dumbest thing ever. So I want to be about it, not just talk about it. And I'll be honest with you, I want to challenge you to do the same. You've been listening to No Streetlights podcast for 3 seasons, 45 episodes. Don't just talk about it, be about it. Challenge yourself. Go from that survival mode to your executive function. Process your emotions. Use that patience. You can do it.
And it just sounds really scary right now. But that is definitely a goal I have, is being able to do that.
I know you'll get there as long as you keep holding compassion for yourself and discriminating between, is this the response that's been fed to me, or is this the way I want to respond? Is this who I want to be moving forward? I had an argument not long ago with my father, and I saw myself become my dad and his dad and all that. I was like, damn, I cannot perpetuate this. So now I have the scope of work. I just got to get to it. So, Ketria, do you have any closing remarks, any closing thoughts? We've been recording for a while, so I think we may be closing out here fairly soon.
I just have a lot of hope for the future, and I didn't have any hope before I started listening to y'all, and that is why it was so striking to me, the message that you put out there for everyone. I started to feel things again and feel like there was a future and improvement possibility instead of being stuck in like this deep dark rock bottom. And at first I was a little jealous almost of people being able to climb out of that rock bottom and to meet their expectations, but it became inspiring after I realized that, you know what, it is going to take effort and it's going to take a lot of growing pains, but if you can do it, I can do it. If Tim can be the man he is today, then I could be the woman I want to be in a day, in a week, in a year, And it's a very exciting journey, I think, that I'm on. And I hope anybody listening is courageous enough to try to take that journey for themselves as well.
I know our listeners are courageous enough. You're one of our listeners. I have faith.
Well, thank you for inviting me to do this with you. I really appreciate it.
We're incredibly grateful to you for coming on, for sharing your story, and for continuing to inspire us.
A huge thanks to all of you for listening.
This has been Aaron.
And Tim with
Ketria.
Shout out to Highland Markle for the original music.
and the Highland Cow. I'm never going to forget that. Share this episode with somebody who could benefit from it.
Let us know what you want to hear our take on.
Or message us for a Highland Cow. Collab.
All pertinent links can be found in the episode description.
Be good to yourselves and each other.
We love you.
Cow!
Legal disclaimer. Our podcast is for entertainment purposes and cannot be substituted for professional medical advice.
If you need help now, please call 911 or 988 for immediate intervention.
Buy our t-shirts. Linktree, NSLP. Go to our Patreon so we have more than 2 patrons. Buy BB's coffee with our link so we get a little bit of that sweet, sweet cheddar.
Sweet cheddar. Bye.